establishing healthy eating habits. But we're going to talk about some different things, why we care at all about what you eat. It's important to know, right? Some people just think of eating as fuel. Like, yeah, I don't know, I just got to get some fuel in there so I can keep going. But how you feel your body makes a big difference on how it operates. And also, it helps keep us well, or it makes us sick, right? So that's why we care at all about eating healthfully in the first place, or making good choices. So up at the top of my triangle here, it says symptoms. So symptoms are what most people have that bring them into my office. Something that you have going on with your health that you're not very fond of and you'd like to get rid of, right? So that can be fatigue, just not feeling quite as energetic as you used to, not sleeping well, hormone imbalance, emotional problems like anxiety or depression, digestive issues, anything and everything can fall into the category of symptoms. So something that you would prefer to get rid of so you can feel better. So when someone has symptoms, what we're always trying to figure out around here is why they have the symptom and actually fix it, get to the underlying cause of the symptom. So I'm always looking at organ function. So we're interested in how's your thyroid doing, how's your heart doing, how's your brain doing, and does it have all the nutrients it needs to do its job? So if you have a symptom, we know immediately it's your body's signal. It's a way of your body telling you something's out of balance. I need something to be different. I need you to eat something that you're not eating, or I need you to stop eating something that you are, right? Those are basically the two options. Either you're lacking something that you need, or you're eating something you shouldn't be. So we're looking at the nutritional deficiencies in the body. So are you getting enough good fats? Are you getting enough good protein? Do you have enough vitamin C? Things like that. If you're lacking anything that the body needs, you will develop an organ dysfunction. So you can have one organ that's dysfunctioning. It usually doesn't work that way though. Usually there's at least 2 or 3, and keeping in mind that everything in your body is part of the system, right? It's just like a car. It's like if your engine's not working, it doesn't really matter how well tuned your carburetor is. You're not going to get very far, right? So if your heart's not working, that automatically means all your other organs are probably struggling. But the heart might be the main thing we need to work on. So I'm always looking at which organ is dysfunctioning, what is it lacking, what nutrient does it need, and if we correct this, then the symptom will go away, whatever the symptom is. So let's say you have fatigue, and we find that you're lacking in vitamin B, and that's making your heart have to work harder than it needs to. If we give you the right vitamin B, then the energy will improve. You'll actually get rid of the fatigue, you'll sleep better, you'll have less leg cramps, less chest pain, whatever it is that you're experiencing, lower blood pressure, higher blood pressure. So that's what we're trying to do around here. So we do this through nutrition response testing, which all of you have experienced, at least seen it, if not felt it yourselves, right? And what we're trying to do there is determine which organ is malfunctioning, and then also specifically what nutrient you need. One of the other things we do though is we try to figure out, is there something getting in the way of that organ doing a good job, and could it be a food, right? So we test you for things like wheat and corn and dairy and sugar and all the different things that could be creating a problem with your organs, because we want to know specifically for each individual if there's a food that's causing a problem. So we'll talk about the foods that mostly cause problems for most people, and there's some specific ones that we're always interested in, but even a healthy food can cause a problem. So I have people that can't eat tomatoes. They eat tomatoes, they get symptoms. If they don't eat tomatoes, they're fine. Onions, garlic. I've seen that over the years, right? Eggplant, yeah. So there's different categories of foods. Like most of those fall into the nightshade category, like tomatoes and eggplant are nightshade vegetables, peppers, and they'll cause inflammation, but not for everybody. Some people are fine. Some people can't have nuts or specific nuts, even though nuts are theoretically a really healthy food and a good snack, and usually we recommend them, but some people can't tolerate them. So that's the other thing that can create nutrient deficiencies, is actually eating a food that your body can't tolerate. So sometimes it's that you're lacking something, and sometimes it's that you're not able to process even healthy foods that are good for you. All right? So when we do the muscle testing, what we're looking for is these two things specific to the individual, which is how we can figure out these more complicated things. We know sugar's bad for everybody. That's a given. I'll let the cat out of the bag in case you were wondering. I know you're sitting there thinking, but maybe it's good for me. No, it's not good for you. Sugar's bad for everybody. It's bad for you and your kids and your pets. And, it's just bad. it's not meant to be consumed, and certainly not on the level that most Americans consume it. Wheat in its current form in this day and age is also not good for anybody. And I'll explain a little bit about why that might be. Corn in its current form is really not good for anybody. Dairy, unfortunately, for the most part, is not that great for us either. And it has to do with 2019, you know, it doesn't have to do with, yeah, but they ate bread in the Bible. People tell me that all the time. Well, they had bread in the Bible, so it must be good for me. It's like, well, if you saw the bread that they had in the Bible, it's not the bread that comes off the shelf at the grocery store today, or even the stuff that comes from like Zingerman's, you know, even the good stuff from Zingerman's is still not what it was, you know, several thousand years ago. So we'll talk about why that is. Emily's gonna come up for a second. I'm gonna demonstrate the muscle testing, mostly because I always like to explain it to you guys in a different way than what you experience it personally, but also because Facebook land is watching, and they might wanna know. All right. She's so tall, right? And then she wears heels.
Has to make us cover today, Janet.
Thank you very much. I'll make us look short. No. All right, so this is Emily. Emily is our clinical assistant, but she's also our newest practitioner here at the office. So she's training. She's about 2/3 of the way through her training. She's going to start taking on clients here in a very short term. So we're excited about that. She's excited too. So she'll let me know if I'm doing this right. All right, ready? Okay. So when we do the muscle testing, what we're looking for is whether or not the body has enough energy or enough strength to hold the arm up here when I push down on it. Obviously, normal would be that everybody has enough strength, because I'm not pushing very hard, and she can hold her arm up. That's really good. So when there's an organ or an area of the body that's under stress, lacking nutrients, lacking blood flow, then when I push on that area, the body shows that stress by making the arm weak. She can't hold it up anymore. So it's just a reaction. So let's say it's her thyroid that is under stress, okay? So if I touch here on her thyroid, when I push here, if the thyroid's under stress, her arm's now going to be weak. So that tells us, it's just her body's way of telling us, something's going on here. I don't have what I need to do my job. So if the thyroid is what is decided needs to be worked on first, then we're going to check specific nutrients for the thyroid. So everybody knows about iodine, right? That's kind of the thing. Everybody says, oh, thyroid needs iodine. But it also needs magnesium, zinc, good fat, calcium. There's all kinds of things. Vitamin E, selenium, there's all kinds of stuff that the thyroid needs. So iodine might be one of the things, but it might not be, or she might need something in addition to that. So with the testing, we can figure out exactly what she needs in her case. So we have the little supplements that we check, and they're in glass, but the energy of those supplements comes right through the glass, enough so that her body can pick up on what's in there and decide if it's good or not so good. Just put one down. Keep one and put one down. So we're pretending this is iodine. All right, so this is iodine. And if it's good for her, her arm will stay strong. Good, so it'll go back to strong, it'll strengthen the thyroid, so we know, okay, good, iodine is for her. If she didn't need iodine, this would stay weak, and we would say, okay, that's not for her, let's find something else. All right, so you've seen all this, but I just like to sort of break it down. And really, we're just testing energy flow in the body, electricity, really, is how that works. So if you hand me the little gadget there. Thanks. So this is just the little energy stick that everybody knows and loves. So there's a little light bulb in here, and 2 pieces of tin foil, essentially. So when I touch both pieces at the same time, I can light it up. And it's just creating a circuit. So when Emily touches that end with your right hand, good, and then she holds her other hand up like this. If I touch her, it's sad, but it works. It's struggling a little bit, the battery's going low. So all we're doing here is creating a circuit. That's what we're doing with the muscle testing when we're checking the organs. So when I check her thyroid, if it's lacking energy or lacking electricity, the nerves are under stress, it breaks the circuit. That's the weak arm. Okay, and then we sort of patch the circuit with the right supplement, just temporarily. Obviously, she has to actually ingest the supplement over a period of time to correct the deficiency. That's how that works. So holding it in your hand is not enough to correct the problem, right? But it actually sometimes makes people feel better for a little bit, just to have it in their hand, but it's probably not going to fix the whole thing. Right, thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
So in this way, we can determine any number of issues, which is why we get really great results and why people like to come see us, because we're very specific to each individual purpose, right? Or problem. Any questions on this? All right, good. So, some people come to me and they know that there are certain foods they're eating that are making them feel bad. They've already figured it out. I'll let you in on a little secret. We already determined that sugar's bad for everybody, so I let you in on that secret. The second secret is the best way to figure out what foods are bothering you. Does anybody have an idea? Food log. Yes, and then process of elimination from that, right? So the action step is writing down what you're eating, which everybody loves to do a lot. Everybody loves it. Everybody that comes in tells me how much they love it. This is my favorite thing, Dr. Shannon. I just love having to keep track of my food. Can I do it forever? So they all ask me. And I tell them, no, you'll have to stop sometimes. Quit being so enthusiastic. So food logging is key because it can take up to 3 days after you eat an offending food to develop a symptom from it if it's bothering you. Up to 3 days. Sometimes it's instant. So some people say, oh my gosh, I ate this food and instantly I felt terrible. But sometimes it's 3 days later. Or it could be a day later or 2 days later. So that's a problem because do you remember what you ate 3 days ago? No. But if you had a food log, would you?
Probably.
Yes, because you could go, oh, let me look. What happened? So what happens when you guys bring me a food log, is I look not only at that day or the night before when you have a problem develop, you know, they say, oh my gosh, I got this terrible headache. I'm looking 3 days prior to that. What was different? What changed? Okay? So that's why. So it's not that, you're, just not bright enough to think about it. It's that you literally don't remember what you ate 3 days ago unless you're writing it down. I don't either. And I pay a lot of attention to what I'm eating, but it doesn't matter. I still don't know what I had 3 days ago. All right, so food logging is key. Even though nobody loves it, nobody's excited about it, I made that part up, but doing it is really, really important. So I'll say 1 minute to 3 days later to get some sort of a reaction. So that's key if you're really trying to sort something out, okay? And what's the reaction? I mean, it can be anything, right? So it depends on what you're trying to fix. Sometimes it's fatigue, sometimes it's, stomach problems, which is a little more obvious. Sometimes it's knee pain. I had a guy who said, boy, I didn't have any knee pain, and then I had a Coke. Next day, knee pain.
Wow.
Has anybody experienced that before with the food, where it's like a pretty immediate, like obvious connection? Okay. If you haven't yet, you will at some point. So the other trick here, which I always like to tell people up front, is if you do cut out a food, like let's say you determine that wheat is really a problem for you, or gluten is really a problem for you, and you decide to cut it out, when you do have some, which usually happens either on accident or on purpose, right? Like let's say you don't eat it for a month and then you have some, the reaction is often more severe and more immediate. So a lot of times you feel like, whoa, I felt awful. And everyone always says, is that in my head? No, it's not in your head. It is more immediate and it is more awful because your body is no longer sort of just quietly dealing with the problem. Your body's been doing better, and then suddenly you kind of throw some gunk in the mix and it reacts violently. So that's what that is. So that's a good thing. That's called feedback. That's your body saying, hey, knock it off, dummy, don't do that. All right, so you want that feedback. All right, so I mentioned already sugar. We know sugar's bad, boo, so sad. All right, so sugar comes in a lot of different forms, right? So you have obviously white sugar, you have brown sugar, same difference. You have sugar that's like a syrup, and so if it says syrup on a label, we'll talk a little bit about food labels. If it says syrup, that's a sugar, and I don't care if it's corn syrup or rice syrup or cane syrup. What is syrup? It's sugar, right? It's concentrated sugar, in fact. So you're going to want to avoid things that have the word syrup in the label, okay? So when you're looking for food labels, anything that ends in these 3 letters is a sugar. Any word. So you have glucose, fructose, right? We know those. Most of us know those. Glucose is white sugar. Fructose is what's in fruit, and it's in corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup. Then you have lactose, right? That's another one. Galactose, one. There's all different kinds of sugars, but OSE means sugar. So if you're looking at a label and you don't understand what the word is, if it ends in OSE, assume it's a sugar. If it says syrup, you know it's a sugar, okay? If it says the word cane, and it'll say cane sugar, cane syrup, cane whatever, cane is sugar cane. So they don't always use the word sugar, but cane means sugar. They'll trick you sometimes and it'll say beet sugar, right? That's another favorite. And it's just still sugar. Most of the sugar in our country, most of the white sugar in our country is from beets, sugar beets. Because sugar cane doesn't grow in the States, but sugar beets do. So that's a problem too, because you're getting into, genetic modification. Anyway, it's a whole thing. I'm going to talk about that in a second. All right. So we got syrup, anything that ends in os, anything that says cane. Obviously, if it says sugar, you know that, right? All right. I'm not going to say that out loud. All right. What's another word? I'm trying to think if there's any other words that I want you to look for. All right. Not at the moment, but I might come back to that. So even if it's fructose from fruit, even if it's, a concentrated fruit syrup or something like that, likely it's going to be higher in sugar than what you're going to want to be looking for. So when you're looking at a label, so food labels, all right, so it's a big square, right? Okay, so first thing you look at in a food label, before you look at anything else, is serving size. Because I get fooled. I get fooled on this. So if you look at a thing of juice that's this big, how many servings are in that? Usually. At least 2. Yeah.
Or 3 or 4.
Or 3 or 4, depending on how they want to trick you into thinking it's a health food. Depending how savvy the label maker was. So look at the serving size, because if it says that there's 3 servings in this, and you know darn well there's no way you're going to drink a third of it, you're going to drink the whole thing, right? Or cookies, like, one of the little packs of cookies, and it says that's 3 servings. And you know you're going to eat the whole thing if you open it, right? So keep in mind, the serving size is important, okay? So you got to look at serving size. So then you have a frame of reference, right? So then you go down, so then it'll say calories. We don't care. We don't care about calories. It matters not. So just get that out of your head, delete it, erase it, rewind it. We don't care. It's going to say fat, it's going to say protein, and it's going to say carbohydrates, and then there's usually a subtext under the carbs where it says fiber and sugar, right? I'm oversimplifying, but these are the things that you want to pay attention to. All right. So the fat, we don't care how much fat is in there. We care what kind of fat is in there, but that's going to come on the ingredient list. Okay, so I don't care how much fat is in there. If you're doing a ketogenic diet, which we can touch on at the end, then you might care because you're trying to get more fat, like you want higher fat. But actually, you do want pretty much everything you eat to have some kind of fat in it. Unless it's fruit or something, then that won't have a label anyway, so you don't have to worry about it. Vegetables and fruit aren't going to have fat in them, but you don't care because they don't have labels. So you want protein, ideally, so we ideally want to be eating protein throughout the day. It doesn't have to be large quantities, but you want to have protein throughout the day for meals and snacks, because you want to be fueling your body. You want to have, basically, make your brain work and make you have energy and not feel like you're craving sugar. So the things that help you keep from craving sugar are fats and proteins. So if you eat enough fat and you eat enough protein, then the sugar cravings go away. I promise. It seems impossible sometimes, but it is true. They do go away. So fat and protein are good. We want them to be included in our regular meals, and we're not concerned about having too much of them. So then you get down to carbohydrates. It'll have total carbohydrates. So let's say, it says 20 carbohydrates, and then it says that 5 of them are from fiber, and 10 of them are from sugar. So what you're looking for overall, in general, a healthy diet includes less carbohydrates than what most of us have grown up on, than what most of us know to be healthy. So if you look at the food pyramid, the whole bottom of it's carbohydrates, like starches and grains and things like that. So, we were taught growing up, if you took any sort of health class or food pyramid class, you were taught, a lot of carbohydrates, like 12 servings of grains, or I don't know, something insane like that. They're still teaching that. It's incorrect. Sorry. So the grain, you really need to sort of flip that triangle upside down. So all those carbohydrates, that should be a lesser part of your diet. But the carbohydrates you do have should be higher in fiber. Okay? So fiber is the part that doesn't make your blood sugar go up, and it does make your bowels healthier, right? It helps with your actual health as opposed to just being sugar. So carbohydrates, kind of another name for sugar, but there's some carbohydrates that are fiber. That's why we care about this. So if it says 20 grams of carbohydrates, you can subtract the 5 of fiber, and then you end up with 15 total grams of carbohydrates per serving, which we want to know what that looks like, right? Is that, 2 of something or 12 of something? And then you want to try to keep the sugar to a minimum. So if you wanted to, you could actually just go ahead and look at the sugar first. This is a little game I like to play. Let's look at the sugar first and then look at the serving size. That's fun. Then it's hilarious. You're like, what? What do you mean there's 30 grams of sugar in one of this, little tiny little snack? So sometimes on paper, on the front of the package, it looks much better than it is on the back of the package, all right? So you don't care about calories. Fat and protein are fine. We'll talk a little bit more about what those look like. And then you do care about total carbs, subtract fiber, and that'll get you the overall carbohydrate amount, okay? So if you're just starting off, or if you're not sure where to start as far as how many carbohydrates, just try to have less than you were having before. Start to pull it back and reduce it. You want to do that gradually anyhow, so that you don't feel deprived, you don't get cravings, and you don't feel like you're going to hurt someone. That's usually what happens. You stay married and in a happy family environment, and your coworkers still like you and all that. So go slow. So this is the key. This is sort of the basics, okay? All the other stuff is mostly gibberish, and don't worry too much about it now. So there's the other part, which is the ingredients, right? So the ingredients should be the fewest ingredients possible, particularly if it's something that, you think, oh, this should only be like a spice packet. Let's take, for instance, like taco seasoning. All right? It's not going to have a whole lot of protein and fat. It's going to have some carbohydrates. But if you look at taco seasoning, what should taco seasoning be? It should be like maybe 4 or 5 spices, and including salt. Yeah. That's your job. Next time you're at the store, go look at a taco seasoning pack and tell me how many ingredients are in there. Ridiculous amounts of things you cannot pronounce, and a lot of them have sugar. So sugar hides in spices, spice packets, and sauces, dressings, soups, like anything that just is like you think it's just sort of seasoned, anything that should be just seasoned, a lot of times they're putting in extra added sugar. And it doesn't necessarily taste sweet to you until you're not eating sugar anymore. So I'll tell you, over the years, it's sort of like, go back and like, oh my gosh, like Catalina dressing is all sugar, right? So it used to be on the taco salad my mom used to make. Hi, Mom. She used to make like taco salad with Catalina dressing. Now she makes it with it, it's on the side if somebody's interested in it, but it is all sugar. It's like corn syrup, right? So it's usually the first ingredient. So what you're looking for, ingredients, most of you probably know this, but the ingredients are listed in the amount order, meaning that the first ingredient listed is the most of what's in an item. So if sugar is the first ingredient, that item is mostly sugar. It has the largest amount of the ingredients is sugar, right? And then it goes in order to biggest to less, okay? So if the first ingredient in something is what you think it is, like if you think you're buying potatoes and it says potatoes, that's good. That's not always the case, but you hope so, right? Good, it's potatoes. So you want to look at in order, and you want to have the least amount of ingredients, and you want to be able to pronounce them. Pretty straightforward, right? So that's going to be more of a whole food, less processed product. Because the more things that they put into an item, the more likely you're going to get some chemical, some sugar, or some ingredient that's less than savory that's going to cause you a health problem, okay? So this is the key. You're basically like trying to dodge, you're sort of navigating this marketing is what it is, by the way. It's advertising and marketing. It has nothing to do with your health. Nothing you buy that has a label on it has anything to do with your health. The person's just trying to sell you a product. So they'll promote it as healthy, right? But who are they, right? They will promote it. So they're the person trying to sell it to you. So you want the least amount of ingredients, ideally no sugar, especially not in the first 3 ingredients, and you want it to have things you can pronounce. Real stuff, okay. Now what's GMO? GMO is something that you'll see on some labels. What you'll see on labels is you'll see that it's non-GMO. So GMO stands for genetically modified organism, okay? It is different foods that are grown specifically to have certain traits. So for instance, they make GMO corn is made in a laboratory. The first seed is made in a laboratory to be resistant to certain pests. And then they can also make it resistant to certain pesticides, right? So the idea is that they can spray it with more stuff. Awesome. So GMO, so corn, and therefore by extension corn syrup, in this country is GMO, excluding sweet corn. So if something's organic, it's not GMO yet. Or if it's sweet corn is not genetically modified. But we're talking about, the stuff they make corn syrup out of is field corn, right? Like what they feed animals, that's what the corn syrup is made from. So GMO corn, most corn is GMO unless it's labeled non-GMO. So here's the trick with food companies. They don't have to label it if it's GMO. And if it's labeled non-GMO, that means the company that produced it, that product, paid out of their own pocket to have it certified and labeled non-GMO. They don't have to do it, but they do it so that you know it. That's why it's more expensive. Because they have to pay extra money to get it non-GMO certified and proven, so then they have to pass that on to you. But that's the only way you know. If it doesn't say anything, you don't know. Tricky, huh? Yeah. It's kind of like calling regular produce conventional produce versus organic. It's like, no, it should be the other way. You know, like regular produce is conventional, that isn't sprayed with a bunch of stuff, and then they should label the other stuff, you know, like poisonous. Instead of organic and conventional. There's nothing conventional about it. All right, so GMOs, we're looking at corn, sugar beets, which is the other source of sugar, right? Soy, canola. All right, does anybody think that this is in some foods, maybe? Yeah. Then you've got cotton is often GMO. That's not usually in your food, but just thought I'd mention it. There's a few other things. These are the main ones that you're going to run into, okay? So if something has soybean oil in it, and it's not labeled non-GMO, probably GMO. Canola oil, which is in pretty much everything, right? Canola oil or soybean oil are pretty much in all processed foods. So those are typically going to be genetically modified things. So the problem with genetic modification in the foods is that they will react, your body will react to them as if they are a foreign substance, because they are. It's not real food, it's not the same as what your body's used to breaking down. So you can get any number of reactions to them. So it's almost like an allergic reaction or a toxin reaction. They also upset the balance in your intestines. So when you look at corn that's genetically modified to, it's a little complicated, but basically what they do is they introduce a bacterium into it. It's called BT corn, so it's a bacterial corn. That bacteria is in the corn, and it disrupts the normal bacteria in your gut, and that's your immune system. And it's also the way your body absorbs nutrients. So you see how this kind of, you know, like there's so many different reasons why we want to avoid processed food, other than, you know, sugar's bad, corn's bad, right? So corn, when it's in corn syrup form, it takes a lot of corn to make corn syrup. It's typically genetically modified and sprayed with a lot of chemicals. So when they concentrate it into corn syrup, it's very high in mercury, among other things like pesticides and herbicides. It's high in mercury because of the way it's processed and grown. So then it's made into soda pop and juice, and the kids drink it, right? I mean, too many adults drink it too, but imagine like little kids drinking it. So it's not just sugar. Like, you know, I used to think like, well, yeah, sugar's bad because it doesn't have any nutritional value, and it makes you kind of hyper, right? It's like, and it makes you have excess calories so you can put on weight, and all those things are true. But now in 2019, it's even worse because of all these other issues going on, the way it's processed, the way it's grown. the way it's produced and then packaged for us. It's also highly addictive, so you can throw that into the mix, and there you pretty much have a big problem. So that's why we're so, pretty diligent about telling people not to eat sugar and processed food, because we see all these implications down the line. Does this help? Are you scared? Don't be scared. Because there's other stuff to eat, It's all right. We're okay. We'll go into it. We'll tell you. All right, so GMOs you want to try to avoid. So then there's this word organic, which gets thrown around a lot. So if something says on a label that it's organic, that's still something that is technically a label that has to be purchased. So it has to be certified organic. Somebody has to actually prove it's organic. The farmer has to pay a lot of money to get certified organic on the product, which is why those products are more expensive, right? That's why your produce that's organic is more expensive, because they have to pay to prove it's organic, and they have to pass that on to you. But organic means that it can't be GMO, and that it has less or less toxic pesticides and herbicides applied to it. It doesn't mean it has none, but it's better. So the very best would be, who has a garden? Anybody? Yes, okay. The very best would be you have a garden where you release ladybugs and, things that can kill bad stuff, so that you're not constantly having to spray the garden to keep it alive. There's lots of different, organic gardening things. I'm terrible. I do not have a green thumb at all. I have a black thumb. So I don't have a garden, but I have farmers that I know and trust that grow produce that I happily go to their place and buy from them, because I'm not going to grow it myself. I'm terrible at it. The amount of energy put into it would not be worthwhile for the 2 tomatoes I would get. So it's just the thing. So if it says organic, it's better. I still recommend getting organic, because you're going to be able to avoid the GMO part of things, and you're going to have less toxic issue going on, less chemicals into it. And there's more nutrients that end up in the food as opposed to the conventional produce. So as much as you can find it and afford it, you do want to try to do organic. So there's something called the Dirty Dozen. So if you can't afford to buy all your produce organic, you want to look up the Dirty Dozen, and we actually have, I think we have a handout on it. We did, I know it's around here somewhere. So at least look up Dirty Dozen, and look it up for the year. They actually put it out each year. So Dirty Dozen 2019, and it'll tell you the 12 or 13, sometimes it's not more than a dozen. It'll tell you the main items that are the highest in pesticide and herbicide residue, so that you know those are the ones you absolutely definitely want to buy organic. So like avocados, for instance, conventional avocados really don't have that much chemicals in them, so it's not really worth the extra price. Like I buy conventional avocados, unless the organic ones are on sale, because they're basically one and the same. But then, something like strawberries, I never buy conventional strawberries. Conventional strawberries are all chemical. They're loaded. And then even if you taste them after you've had non-chemical strawberries, when you taste the conventional strawberries, they taste like chemicals. You can taste the difference. I mean, does anybody think that strawberries don't taste like they used to when you were a kid? Right. Yeah, it's like, what is this? Plastic. So there's a reason for that, and that's because they've been, basically chemicalized to get them to grow so we can have them year-round. That's how you get them year-round in the grocery store. But the organic ones have a lot less chemicals, and they taste a lot better. Same with pretty much any berry needs to be organic. Grapes should be organic. But look up that Dirty Dozen list so that you know, like, these are the ones that I absolutely. So my poor husband, he's like, any grapes this week? I'm like, nope, sorry, only conventional. We'll have to wait, because the organic ones, they actually produce them more in season, right? So sometimes you can't get stuff here, right? You can't get grapes that are organic. Apparently from about mid-December through maybe next month, we'll see. He hasn't had grapes in a while, it's okay. So we're on to oranges. So that's important to know, because not only do you want more nutrients and it tastes better, but it's that chemical residue. All those chemicals that are on the food, when you eat it, your body has to either clean that up and get rid of it, or it has to store it away until it can have the ability to clean it up. So that creates all kinds of problems for our liver, for our kidneys, for our hormonal system. So the things that are found in pesticides and herbicides are very disruptive to the hormones in our body and to our digestive system, they cause cancer. I mean, these are all, you know, pretty widely accepted ideas, but you don't always think about it when you're at the grocery store, right? All right, so GMO organic. I'll just tell you, the word natural means nothing. It just doesn't, it's just a word, it's a marketing word. So if something says natural, if it says heart healthy, if it says, heart healthy is a really good one. That's one of my favorites. Like Cheerios gets the heart healthy, right? That's from the people that give you the food pyramid. So that's wrong. Cheerios are very not heart healthy, actually, because they're loaded with chemicals, and they're loaded with pesticides and herbicides, and fake vitamins and minerals, and they're all carbohydrate. And usually you pour, you know, skim milk on them, right, which is also carbohydrate. So skip the Cheerios and have some eggs with real butter, and you'll be better off. So the beautiful part of this, right, is I said we don't care about fat and protein. What do you want to eat? You want to eat real food. So real fat, real protein, real vegetables, real fruit, real nuts if you tolerate them. So when we're looking at protein, it matters about the quality. So same idea, organic or at least something that's like locally raised, that wasn't just loaded with a lot of injections. Like they put a lot of antibiotics into food, right, into cows and into the eggs and the chickens and things like that. So buying organic produce and buying organic proteins are also important. Or hook up with the farmer in the area. And we have lots of resources here that we can help you if you're looking for somebody. That they have, you know, cows that eat grass and pigs that don't eat questionable things. I mean, pigs eat anything. Pigs eat anything they can get their little snouts on. But in traditional farming, not traditional, there's nothing traditional about it. In factory farming, they feed the pigs all kinds of weird stuff. The cows too. Candy bars, and basically the waste from the food industry. So candy bars, orange peels, there's all kinds of weird stuff that the farmers can buy it cheap from the food industry, and then they feed it to the animals. So then the animals aren't as healthy, right? That's the bottom line. So if you get a cow that eats grass, that cow, the fat in that cow's meat actually has a lot of omega-3s in it. Omega-3s are what everybody gets all excited about, fish and fish oil because of omega-3s. Grass-fed beef has a lot of omega-3s in it, as long as it's really grass-fed. So once you put it onto grain or candy bars, then it doesn't have as much omega-3. Makes sense, right? So if you're buying, you know, a hamburger from just a regular store or regular restaurant, it's much more likely to have omega-6s, which are not necessarily bad for you, but most of us get too many of those. We need more omega-3s. Those are anti-inflammatory. That's why everybody gets excited about fish oil. But you can get excited about grass-fed beef. Woo! It's a health food. Same with eggs. So eggs should be from chickens that actually eat bugs and worms, not that eat soy and corn. Right? So they always, if it says vegetarian fed on the box of eggs, do not buy them, because chickens are not vegetarian. They are actually omnivores. So they will eat corn and they will eat soy, but they also like to eat bugs, and that's actually what makes the healthiest eggs, bugs and worms. So vegetarian chickens are not that happy, so you don't want to eat their eggs, okay? So these are some of the major things. So when you're looking at the food labels, just know that if it says natural or heart healthy, or it's got this sort of like, you gotta cut through the marketing, and you gotta look at the facts, right? So what are the actual ingredients? What does the actual label say about GMO versus and organic? You know, is this anywhere on there, which is better? And then what is the serving size and what's actually in it? These are going to be how you navigate the store. Clearly you want to buy as much food as you can that doesn't have a bunch of labels on it, right? But, you know, you got to get some stuff. I get it. You know, you got to have some tortillas or some loaf of bread or, you know, something along the way. So the foods that we know cause the most trouble for the most people, besides sugar. Jeez, Janet, aren't you excited you're in my front row? Woo! Just throwing stuff. Duck. Next time I reach for something, duck. I will. All right. So the things that we see around here that cause the most trouble, besides sugar, I said wheat, right? So everybody says gluten, but it's really, it's wheat, which contains gluten, okay? But it's usually the wheat itself that's the problem. because, again, of the way it's processed. Corn we already touched on, right? So most of the corn, a lot of the corn you're getting is going to be GMO corn or low quality. If it says organic corn, then you might be able to get away with it. All right, so you've got sugar, we know, I'll put that back on here. Wheat / gluten, I'll say. Corn. Soy. Soy is a problem because it's genetically modified. It also disrupts hormones. So we look at soy protein, which is added into a lot of things as a filler. So if you get a hamburger that isn't just burger, which a lot of them aren't. Like you ever go to the airport and order a burger? It's not meat. It's not just beef. It has beef in it, but there's filler in there. It's weird. It's like a weird consistency, and it's the exact same. Everyone's the exact same shape, right? Because it came frozen that way. But they're putting fillers in there, usually soy protein or something to bulk it up. So it's cheaper. It's cheaper. Maybe sawdust. I don't know. I can't say for sure. And it tastes like sawdust. It tastes bad. You know, because I like travel a lot. I'd say, oh, I'm at the airport. What's safe? The answer is not much. But you know, like, oh, I'll just have a burger without a bun. And then they bring the burger. You're like, I don't know. Is there any meat in here? You know, is this beef?
Bring the bun.
Beef burger? And inevitably, every time, yeah, I know. Bring me the bun. Inevitably, every time on the menu, it says, you know, USDA 100% Angus beef. It always says that it's like this awesome burger, and then they bring it, and you're like, no, this is the burger that they serve at every cafeteria and every restaurant and every, you know, it's just. I mean, McDonald's, I think they've done the analysis on it. I don't even know if it's 50% beef.
Yeah.
But it's pretty low, you know. It's just enough that they can call it hamburger. Yeah. All right. So soy gets added into a lot of stuff as a filler, and a lot of oil, soybean oil, gets added into stuff too. Soy lecithin, right? You see that a lot. All right. So these guys are big ones, and then I mentioned dairy, and this is always people get mad and throw stuff at me, but we'll talk about it anyway. We love our dairy, don't we? Us Americans. All right, so if you have a cow in your backyard, and you go out and you milk it, and you drink it, and the cow's like, you know, eating grass, and then you go milk the cow and you drink the milk, it's good for you. Most people tolerate that very well. It has healthful benefits, it has a lot of nutrients, and it has good bugs in it that make you healthy. Pretty much every step after that, if anything else besides that occurs, like it's not your cow, or the cow doesn't eat grass, or the milk gets cooked before you eat it, or the cow gets antibiotics, or it gets added hormones, like all the stuff that happens to it, if it's not your cow that's in the backyard eating grass, make the dairy questionable. One of the biggest problems, honestly, is the health of the cow, okay? And then the pasteurization. So when it gets pasteurized, which means cooked, changes the protein, and the protein becomes an allergen for the majority of us, okay? So a lot of people think I eat dairy and it causes me a problem because I'm lactose intolerant, right? So we know lactose is a milk, right? That's the sugar in the milk. So some people think, well, I'm lactose intolerant if I can't have milk, but that's not usually the case. Usually it's the whole milk. It's the protein in the milk, but all the other stuff too. But it's the protein gets pasteurized, it changes, and then your body can't break it down, it can't recognize it and break it down. So it's less of a lactose issue for most people than it is just a protein issue, an overall issue. So you cannot take the milk protein out of the milk, or else it's not milk anymore. It's not something, you know, you can buy lactose-free milk. Some people say, well, can I do lactose-free milk? No, that's not the issue, it's the milk itself. So the idea is that this keeps the milk safe. That was the theory behind cooking it. But it does kill the bugs, but the bugs are actually what keep the milk better for you, because the bugs help you break it down and digest it. And they also, if it sits out too long, it doesn't go bad, it just ferments, right? It turns into yogurt, or it turns into kefir, it turns into sour milk, buttermilk, right? So the idea of pasteurization was a bit flawed, which we know now, but so there are places where you can get milk from a cow that isn't cooked around, and they're local, and you can actually just, you pay the person and you give them money directly, and then they raise milk and you go pick it up once a week, or they sometimes deliver. So if there's something you're interested, like if you have children who drink milk a lot, or you know that you feel like you need a milk source for, that's a possibility. Otherwise, I really don't recommend drinking milk, pasteurized milk from the grocery store, even if it's organic. Most people don't do very well with it. So cheese is better tolerated by some people. You want to do raw cheese, which means it's not pasteurized. So it's usually labeled as raw. Or on the ingredients list, it'll say unpasteurized cow's milk or unpasteurized goat's milk. It'll say that. So raw, which is unpasteurized. That's going to be best. That's going to be best tolerated. And then when you look at yogurt, that's, you know, fermenting it, it's actually changing the structure of the protein a little bit. So some people can tolerate yogurt even if they can't tolerate milk. All right. So yogurt and cheese are maybes if you're not, you know, super sensitive to them. So the problems that I usually see with these are things like skin problems, digestive problems, definitely digestive problems. So if anybody has, you know, trouble with their gallbladder, like they eat greasy food and they have upset stomach or maybe diarrhea, that's usually someone who's not going to tolerate dairy very well. If you have a chronic immune challenge, like virus, parasites, bacteria, then those are going to be exacerbated or harder to clean up if you're having milk or any dairy for that matter. And anyone with sinus or lung problems, I don't recommend they have dairy because it's mucus forming, right? So, you know, there's like eat milk or drink milk and you get that sort of stuff in your throat. So if you already have that, if you already have a sinus problem, if you already have a lung problem where you have too much mucus, it can create issues. So this is one of the major allergens that I think is overlooked in our country. And I see a ton in kids who are constipated, kids who have digestive issues or skin issues, eczema, psoriasis, all that stuff. And you get rid of the dairy and it just clears right up. So the alternatives to this would be things like coconut milk or almond milk. Some people can tolerate goat's milk. Like I can do goat milk. I can actually do that as long as it's not too much of it and it's a high quality unpasteurized goat milk. I can do that. So you've got goat, you've got almonds, you've got coconut. But again, you got to read the labels here because they love to sweeten this stuff. They love to put sweetener in the almond milk and sweetener in the coconut milk. So you got to make sure it's just almond milk that doesn't have a bunch of sugar added to it, or coconut milk without a bunch of sugar. All right, and then we covered how to pick out good produce, how to pick out good vegetables and fruits. We talked about proteins, and then let's just touch on fats specifically. Any questions on this? No? Okay. Are you feeling like empowered or overwhelmed? Are you sad? Okay, just checking. I try not to make people sad in general. I always say with a smile, right, Janet? Oh, you can't have milk. Like that. And it makes them feel so much better when I say it when I'm smiling. But it's okay. You can have eggs. Not ice cream. Nice try, Sean. Okay. So when we talk about fat, so you really want to stick with less processed fats, and animal fats or fats that are naturally found in nature are going to be healthier than the processed fats. So we talked a little bit about like soybean oil, corn oil, vegetable oil, which is kind of a catch-all term, right, for canola or soybean. They do a mixture. So canola oil. So these can be found in liquid form, or sometimes they'll make them into butter, right? I can't believe it's not butter. That's just a mixture of this stuff and chemicals. It's terrible for you. This is the stuff that causes clogged arteries, heart disease, inflammation in the body. Okay? So these are the no-nos. So what do you want to have instead? Real fat. So you got coconut oil, you got lard from happy pigs, you got tallow from happy cows, butter from happy cows. I'll put palm oil up here. It's a little harder to come by, but most people do coconut. You've got nut oils. You got avocado, olive. So the olive oil, just a note on that, you don't want to cook with olive oil. It's better at no temperature or very low temperature. So it's better used for dressings, put on your food after you eat. You don't want to saute with it or cook it at high temperatures because it actually ruins the benefits of the oil and actually causes some not so savory chemicals. So you're better off cooking with coconut oil or butter or lard, something like that. Let's see, what else? So then there's also the healthy fats that are found in healthy proteins, right? So like fish, found in eggs, full fat dairy if you can tolerate it. So if you're gonna buy yogurt, you wanna buy full fat yogurt that doesn't have a bunch of sugar added into it. Usually plain. That's usually, you gotta get plain, and then you put your own organic berries in there, or your own organic sweetener in there. Good? Okay. I probably missed something, but these are good starting points. MCT oil is just a version of coconut oil. It's a liquid version of coconut oil.
What about grapeseed oil?
Grapeseed. Grapeseed's okay. I kind of put it in the middle of the two. It wouldn't be my first choice. It's not terrible. Same with like sunflower oil. It's probably okay, but they tend to go rancid a little bit more easily. That's why we like these, because they're real stable. You know, like you just keep coconut oil on your shelf, right? Sit there for 20 years and be exactly the same 20 years from now.
What about things like shortening, like palm shortening?
Yeah, palm shortening would be okay.
Okay.
If it is indeed just that, you still want to look at the ingredient list.
Okay.
I'm telling you guys, I've been doing this for 12 years, I guess. 12 years, like really looking at working on nutrition, teaching people nutrition, learning about nutrition. I still get fooled. I still come home from the grocery store with something I've never bought before that looks good on the front, and I didn't read the ingredient label. I turn that sucker over, and by golly, it's got something. I'm like, are you kidding me? I got like, I'm getting duped, you know? But it's because, you know, the front, it might say palm shortening. I'm like, great, that's exactly what I need. And then I get home and I turn it over, and it's not what it says it is on the front. So that's my warning. My disclaimer at the bottom of every statement I make is, yes, as long as that's actually what it is that you're buying. So you have to read the label. So one of the things that people tell me is, and it can be overwhelming if you're starting to improve your diet, you're starting to make changes, it can be overwhelming because it will take you a lot longer at the grocery store. It just will. Because you're, you know, trying to read all it, trying to figure it out. Oh no, what am I gonna buy? What brand of this? What kind of this? But what happens then is you get your tried and true, you know, you start to figure out, okay, this is the brand of eggs I buy, and this is the brand of yogurt I buy, and this is the brand, you know. So then at some point it does actually becomes faster because you don't have to worry about all the other riffraff. You just know, okay, I need X, Y, and Z. So I can get in and out of the grocery store in 20 minutes as long as nobody's in front of me with a slow cart, you know. I just push them to the side. You think I'm joking, that's good. I'm glad. But it actually is easier once you know, right? But it does take a little bit of time at the beginning. And then occasionally what will happen is one of your very favorite tried and true products, they'll change it. And they don't tell you. And then you get home and one day you look and you go, oh my gosh, this didn't used to be in here. I can prove it. I have an old one. I do that all the time. So you have to be constantly diligent. That's what it takes to be healthy, though, unfortunately, in this day and age, because everyone's out to get your buck, but they're not necessarily out to protect your health. So you got to do that for yourself. Right, is this helping? Mm-hmm. Yes? Okay, good. Any other specific categories that we've covered so far? No? Okay. So the strategy when you go to the grocery store is, everybody always says, stay on the outside. Maybe, but you know, along the way, grocery stores figured out that that's what you were doing, and they trick you and they put all the baked goods and the muffins, and they start to interject processed foods into the outside. So that's not really such a great, you know, still the produce is usually on the outside aisle. That's helpful. Everything outside, I don't know, maybe not. They're drawing you into the middle. They're trying to like suck you into the vortex. That is the processed food aisle. So you want to just have a list. Don't go hungry, you know, have an idea of exactly what you're trying to get and what you're trying to avoid, right, based on what we just talked about, and then, you know, you can zip around and get in and get out, and don't try to put extraneous stuff in the cart unless you have time to actually look at the label and read it. So you can't make many impulse purchases. It's not gonna serve you very well, okay? So you wanna make up your diet primarily of protein, that it contains good quality fat, plenty of produce, right? Whatever vegetable you like. Even if you only like 2 vegetables, just eat those for now until you have less sugar in your diet and you'll start to like the taste of other vegetables. That will happen. Cross my heart. I swear. Brussels sprouts will be your friend, but it might take a while. And then you want to try to avoid as many processed foods, lots of ingredient foods as possible, okay? Fruit for snacks / dessert, all right, in place of other sugary items. And don't be afraid of fat. Fat is your friend because fat is going to keep you full, it's going to keep you satisfied, it's going to help your brain work better, it's going to give you energy. So that's ketogenic diet, right? People talk about ketogenic diet, oh, you know, not only do they lose weight on it, but they feel better. It's because most of us throughout our life have not been eating enough fat, and we've certainly not been eating the right kinds of fats. At least I wasn't. So eating a lot of fat, increasing the amount of fat that you're eating, helps with satisfaction. It helps to keep you full so you're not constantly looking for the next thing to eat, but it also helps you to avoid carbohydrates in excess, sugar specifically. So when it comes to ketogenic diet, some people just try to eat more fat, adequate protein, less carbohydrates. You can get really specific with it where you're having a specific target for the amount of fat, and then you're keeping the carbohydrates really, really low, like below 20 grams a day. That's really, really low. I don't recommend people start there. If you've been doing low carb for a while and you want to take it to the next step, then that's a good next step, is to go, okay, I'm going to go into a ketogenic diet. But most people, to go from where they're starting into keto diet is a huge step, and it'll be too much, and you'll feel really bad when you do it. You know, physically you will feel really, really bad. Well, mentally too. You won't like people or anybody or yourself or anything. So it's something you want to do gradually if you're headed in that direction. But it does help to lose weight. It helps to reset your metabolism, helps keep your brain really sharp. So that's a healthy diet, but it's not always the starting point. So that's what I wanted to say about that. And Janet had a question about intermittent fasting. So intermittent fasting means that you restrict your calorie intake to a window during the day of a certain amount of hours. So what that means is you're fasting for maybe 10 hours a day. No, sorry. You're fasting for 14 hours a day and you're eating during a 10-hour window. That would make 24, yeah. Or you're fasting for 16 hours a day and you're only eating during an 8-hour window. So for instance, you know, you would start eating at noon, stop eating at 8, and then do that. You wouldn't eat anything from 8 p.m. to noon the next day. That's called intermittent fasting. And you can do it for different windows of time. Like some people only eat during a 4-hour window, 6-hour window, 8-hour window. But during that time, they're eating plenty of fat, plenty of protein, not too many carbohydrates. You know, they're eating a healthy diet, but within that window. That's also good for resetting metabolism, for helping with brain function. Fasting has a lot of benefit when it comes to regenerative. So it makes your body produce stem cells, and it's anti-cancer. So there's benefits to fasting. And then there's other people who do fasts twice a year. You know, they fast for 3 days, or they don't eat anything, or you know, they only drink water. So those have benefit to them. But everybody's different as far as what they can tolerate and when that's appropriate for them. So it's not really something that I just make a blanket recommendation, like everybody should fast. You know, I don't say that. It has benefits in the right circumstance. Do you have a specific question about intermittent fasting? You just want to know if I thought it was good or what the, yeah, okay. That answer your question? Okay. I don't recommend, and you can probably figure that out based on what I just went over, I don't recommend a vegan diet because it's quite low, well, it's no animal products, right? And it's quite low in saturated fat, which actually is important for your health. Good fat, including saturated fat. That has long-term implications. So the idea of eating more vegetables and more produce is great. I highly recommend it. It's for everyone. But I find that having some animal protein and animal fat in your diet is what yields the best results for long-term health. That's my understanding based on what I know clinically and what I've seen clinically over the years. It's my understanding based on how the body works, the fact that we are omnivores, which means we're supposed to eat a variety of foods. That's what we're built for. This machine is built to run on all kinds of foods. And also based on what I've read and researched over the years. So there's many who would disagree with me, and that's okay. But I don't work with vegans because I find that they don't get well. It's difficult to do a healthy vegan diet. Like, you gotta be, boy, you gotta be really diligent and know exactly what you're doing as far as food combining and the right amount of certain kinds of beans and nuts and all of that. And most people just don't know how to do it, or they don't have the willingness to, delve into it at that level. So that's my blanket statement that'll make people mad out there in Facebook land. But I'll just tell you, like, vegetarian, that's different. So a lot of people have a vegetarian diet, but they'll eat fish or they'll eat eggs or some dairy. That's fine. Then they're having some protein, some fat. We can work with that. But again, the key to a vegetarian diet is not to have a carbitarian diet. A lot of vegetarians eat a lot of rice, a lot of bread, a lot of starchy stuff. So they end up having too many carbohydrates. So then they're going to run into the same problem as somebody who's not a vegetarian, but that's eating too many carbohydrates. The same thing. Too many carbs is too many carbs, regardless of what kind of protein you're having. And carbs are, especially if they're refined carbohydrates, are very inflammatory. And they put you on this roller coaster where your blood sugar is going up and down all the time, and that makes you less stable, and it makes your body less adaptable to stress. Does anybody have stress? Nobody in this group. I do sometimes, but when you're eating this way and your body's nourished, you adapt to stress better, and that not only like mental stress or emotional stress, but I'm talking about actual physical stress, going on in the cold, right? My grandma would say, "Put your hat on, you're gonna catch a cold." It has nothing to do with whether your head's covered, okay? She should have said, "Eat more bacon and butter before you go in the cold, you'll be fine." I mean, it's like, that has more to do with it, right? That's how you can tolerate cold temperatures, hot temperatures. People in your office that are coughing on you because they all have a virus. A lot of my patients, I mean, this is something I hear this time of year, people coming in like, "I'm so thankful that I'm on my program here because everybody in my office is sick but me. My whole family's sick but me. Right? All my friends are sick for 3 weeks and I'm fine." The reason for that is not because they're like magical and they have some sort of force field around them. It's because their body can take that virus, neutralize it, and keep on going. That's what we want. We want to be flexible and able to adapt to our environment. That's the name of the game. That's how you stay well. Okay? All right, any other questions tonight?
I have a
Yes,
quick
Ms.
question.
Emily?
When it comes to eggs, when you hear like pasture raised, free range, cage free,
Yep.
what is your recommendation on that?
Yep. So pastured eggs that's basically another word for they get to roam around and eat bugs.
Okay.
So that's what I would be looking for first and foremost if you're buying at the store.
Okay.
And usually those are also labeled organic, not always, but if they're pastured, they're out there finding whatever bugs they're finding. So that's the number one recommendation. These are becoming easier and easier to find in the store because there's a demand for it. So we vote with our pocketbook, right? So if you go to the grocery store and you buy a certain item, this grocery store is going to stock that item, right? So that's how we get more organic. People tell me, "There's no organic produce at the grocery store by my house." I'm like, all right, well, you got to start buying it, or you got to start asking the produce manager. You got to start asking, put in a comment card every time you go there. "I come here twice a week for groceries. I want to see organic broccoli," or whatever. And they'll do it because what do they just want to stay in business and sell you food, right? Yep. You've been a lovely audience tonight. Thanks for letting me throw things at you. If you have any other questions or you want any information on us farms and things like that, don't hesitate to ask. But otherwise, I will let you know that our next lecture on the schedule is Monday the 18th at 7 p.m. It's about digestion. So we'll cover some of these points in a little more detail when it comes to the digestive health. So that's anybody you know that might have trouble. So that's constipation, that's diarrhea, that's diagnosed illness like ulcerative colitis or something like that. We'll touch on that. We'll touch on reflux, all that gas, bloating, all the exciting stuff. So, tune in on the 18th or bring a friend. And otherwise, just have a lovely evening, okay? Thank you. Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Oh, thank you, thank you. I won't swing my arms too far, I'll probably knock something over.